Hi, everybody. Eric Mashinsky. This is the weekend of what are we now? November 1st, 2nd. Already November 2nd. We've got an election coming up on it's Tuesday, I believe. And I wanted to give some thoughts on the election, on the capital markets. I'm going to give you a tidbit of my personal beliefs, which I really rarely talk about politics, but I'm going to focus on what I think is going to be the case with assets that are relevant to us: gold, Bitcoin, dollar, macro, things like that, um, which will obviously affect gold stocks, silver stocks. And I'm going to also talk a little bit about commodities. But, you know, my thing is that unless, if you're trading, if you're doing any trading right now based on an election outcome, um, especially one this close, I just look at you as a gambler. You might as well buy a lottery ticket. You have no edge, you know. The odds on a payoff, if you're on Polymarket saying, it's going to be Trump, there's no like upset odds that you're going to put down 100 and get 300 back. It's very close. So how much of this is going to impact how we do in our investments going forward? But first, I just wanted to say with the trading around the election, or even what you hold, it is going to be a volatile month. That's one thing that I do want to relay is that it's going to be a volatile month, and I've actually been raising a little bit of cash. So just because there's going to be, I'm not looking for a crash or anything, but I'm definitely of the ilk that it's going to be volatile, and so there will be opportunities when things get hit, pull back sharply, whether those are for trades or just for entries and long-term stuff. And I just feel this sense in my gut that I should raise some cash. I mean, I was talking to an elite member, long-term elite member who's a friend of mine. He brought this question up about what do you think about raising 10% in cash right now because of all this? I said, I think that's a wonderful idea. I'm basically doing the same. And as our investments continue to do well and start to cash out with big wins, like we've had some whiffs of lately, I think one realization I've had is ask yourself, how easy or difficult is it for you to sit on cash, like in your brokerage account? Because for me, I always see a new opportunity and I put that cash to work. So it's a discipline to sit on cash. It's a discipline to say, and usually when I do want to raise any sort of significant cash, I get it out of my face. I put it in like two accounts away that I don't see and that I barely remember I have, unless it's like a buy emergency. That's what I did for the 2020 crash. Prior to that, thank God. And I did. That was like the first time I was really disciplined with making sure that I had reserves in case something went wrong, and it did. And I just started looking through my accounts and looking through different things to say, I know I put some cash here. I mean, I'm talking about just, moving over to savings account, like my primary bank, no. My secondary bank that I never log into, yes. Third bank, like Capital One, where I just keep some savings and going every month. That one, which I barely check. A brokerage account in Canada that I know that I've been piling up some money and they can wire it over to me and, get shopping quickly. So things like that. But it's not easy if that were to be the case that what you want to do, whether that's now, pre-election, pre-volatility, post-election. God forbid, the only thing that could really kind of screw things up is if, say, Kamala wins marginally, and then Trump starts to say this is rigged, and he's not. Well, what's he going to do? Show up? He's not in the office this time, so he's not exactly going to say I'm staying at the desk in January. I think this year it'll be fine. But as far as policies, here's the thing, guys. So the U.S. president, I feel, is has very little power in the scheme of things, particularly as it pertains intermediate to long term on economic activity, liquidity, capital markets, the economy in general. There's little areas they can definitely spike or stifle when it comes to, things like one of the big headlines that is not very good for Kamala, for people that are investors or higher net worth, is this unrealized capital gains tax. But that's for people or corporations. That's for folks that have got over, I think it's over 100 million. And even then, what she doesn't realize, I guess, is that you're going to tax them and then they're going to spend less. Those are the winners in society. A lot of them, entrepreneurs, successful. And if they start getting taxed on unrealized gains, they're not going to reinvest that into launching new businesses, investing, funding companies, and it will end up hurting. It's just another mechanism to uh, put money into the government's hands, which typically is very inefficient. There's a lot of waste with government programs. Thank God that we have them. I'm not a tax, avoid tax advocate. Um, we've got to play by those rules to the best of our ability, but there's also a reason that the wealthiest 1% in the world pay the least percentage of taxes, because they do their homework. They find out how they can save money on taxes. They could give more. I'm not, worried about that. In essence, is like a key thing that could kill everything, or not. But the rhetoric, if you listen to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump about, what they're going to do, we've got Trump who's pro tariffs. I'm not going to speak on that, but generally he's looked at as a more friendly person. What I think it would affect the most in the near term is crypto, because he's become a big proponent of crypto. I just saw a Federal Reserve report that said that crypto, Bitcoin particularly, may end up helping us to not run such large deficits. So just so you guys know, and another thing on Bitcoin, this is very important for gold investors, because the reason we're in gold is to store our purchasing power and value. Gold right now, since 1970, 71, is up over 10% annualized, priced in dollars, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. It's keeping up with the demise, the debasement of our currency. Now, if you moved over Venezuelan, or I'm sorry, Argentine pesos, or Colombian pesos, or something where the printing and the debasement have gotten out of control, inflation has gotten out of control, you are up many, many, many more times, because what gold is to me is it's an inverse mirror on the debasement of fiat currency at the end of the day. But a real store of wealth, and a real area that I think is going to continue to get a lot of interest because of several factors, no matter who gets in office. The presidents of the United States, this whole system, and like with us being encouraged to vote, um, for example, I'm not voting. What if I'm not going to vote? I'm not going to vote for somebody who I'm not completely enamored with, like that have some sort of an innovative, I would usually skew more towards libertarian. The closest I came, I'm going to share a secret with you guys. I've never voted in a US presidential election in my adult life. I've I guess I just didn't care as much in my, early 20s and stuff. When I was around 26 or 7 or 8, whenever it was that Dr. Ron Paul ran, I actually registered. And then when I showed up, because they had machines on election day in my building in Chicago, they said they didn't get my registration. So I'm not on the record for voting Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or other in my life. So I'm deciding to keep it that way, unless something really, somebody special comes around. I'm sorry for all of you guys that are diehard Republicans, mostly probably listening, or libertarians. God bless you. Democrats, whatever. There's different levels to these things, and the reason why they have to say moderate or far, right or left, is because my brain, my personality, my viewpoints, I'm sorry, but they don't fit into one of two lanes. Like the whole two-party system to me is extremely limited. And whatever, I'm not, that's what it is. So you know what? And the other part of it, guys, I hate to tell you, your vote doesn't fucking matter at all. One bit. In fact, the only reason your vote matters is because then you believe that you had some say in the matter of who is king or queen, and that you were the one who opposed these bastards, or that that voted them in, so therefore you got your will done. I'm going to remind you guys, I'm sorry, this is taking on a little life of its own, but I'm going to throw in one piece of why all this, to me, is missing the higher levels beyond the president. First of all, the central banking system, the fractional reserve banking system, the central banking system, the debt laden, debt ridden, leveraged banking system within fiat is what moves the rivers and the flows of economic activity and the gap between rich and poor. Either you figure it out and you exploit it, which I luckily have done, coming up from nothing, and I'm a college dropout. Another tidbit, I never even graduated high school on time. I was a terrible student. I skipped out of school so much. I was a complete rebel. I was angry. I was like, and then personal, I guess this is getting personal. My father died when I was 17, and then I kicked into gear and I became a 4.0 student my senior year, but I didn't have enough credits. So I negotiated a deal with my counselor to go to finish off high school and get my diploma at a Milwaukee area technical college. And the Milwaukee area technical college, right before that, I met a girl who became my first love for 4 years, who went to the University of Wisconsin Madison, which is a very high functioning, well respected school, and she was on the dean's list. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to MATC to figure out where I want to go. I'm not ready to decide yet. Little did she know, I wasn't even a high school graduate, but I was able to drive down there every day in my 1975 van. And yeah, that was a trip. I was one of the only white kids there. So anyway, um, that did get me my diploma. I went on to college. I'm just saying these things because I guess I look at things a little bit differently because I've had to buck the norm in the system, or I've chosen to do it. I chose to drop out of college because I had an opportunity that came up, and I never had to go back, luckily, because my career's evolved and stuck. I'm not against it. I think, but things are changing, guys. That's one of the things I wanted to mention, the undercurrents and the changes that are happening in society. It's difficult for boomers, for example. I'm Gen X. I might be smack dab in the middle of Gen X, but baby boomers, I don't blame you. Like, some of you guys are still you have financial advisors, and I was one for 16 years, by the way, that have you broken down into 60/40 equities and bonds. That's your portfolio. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm going to give you one more tidbit that some of you may not know. Look it up. I'm not going to post the link. BlackRock, in late September, just over a month ago, published a report because, as you know, BlackRock has flipped on Bitcoin. They went from this is a scam to the largest asset manager in the world of Bitcoin through their ETF IBIT. Larry Fink has said that it's a flight to quality. It's the fastest growing ETF launch. Bitcoin way faster than gold, which I believe was the second most substantial. And Bitcoin now, everything that I'm seeing, I've been in Bitcoin since 2016, as some of you that have been with me for a while know, and we recommended it here under $500 a Bitcoin for the first time. Sold it too early in the 17 melt up, got back in the 18 bear market, 19 bear market, aggressively got a big allocation, and it changed my financial profile forever into 2021's top. But BlackRock said that the ideal portfolio, now they didn't get into risk profiles, they didn't get into like, oh, well, if you're 70 this doesn't apply, or if you're 22, it doesn't apply. The optimal allocation in your overall portfolio to Bitcoin is 84.9% BlackRock. Do you know that? And you don't own any? Are you out of your mind? You're waiting on your financial advisor, your RIA, because they are so far behind the curve. I mean, they just are. If I was an FA still, if I had some sort of a newsletter component or for my clients, I would have encouraged them to buy Bitcoin a long time ago, even though I didn't get paid for it, because I just believed in it so much. Others, it just came on their radar because now they can actually get part of their wrap fee to buy the ETFs, which doesn't even mean that you own crypto, which, by the way, is actually very important in this discussion, because the debasement of our currency, the people that run how things go, it's an invisible force, if you will. We call them they. They they want this done, they want that done, they do this, and that's why that happened. And guess what? You think that Trump is going to clear the swamp and clean the swamp? He's in the swamp. He's not above the swamp. And he might do a little of this and that. He was for the COVID lockdown and vaccines. Listen, we love who we love. Trump is probably the lesser of two, evils, if you will. I actually thought Kamala Harris in the first debate, I don't even know if they did a second. I watched it, and I thought she did really well. I was like, wow, because I wasn't expecting her. I expected her to just have like a Joker grin on her face the whole time and laughing, but she did great. So it won't matter. We survived and made money through Barack Obama, George Bush. Doesn't matter. And I don't focus on those things here at the Gold Investment Letter to drive our investment returns. Do you think that the reason gold is at all-time highs in priced in US dollars is because of a president? It just hit that during Joe Biden's freaking administration. It has nothing to do with him. And it will have very little to nothing. Nothing. No, it'll have nothing to do with Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. That's one thing I wrote on my Facebook profile, which I haven't used Facebook in over 5 years, at least. When they ask you your political stance, all I put was less government, the better. And I think I signed up for that in 2009 or something. I still believe that. That's it. That's it. Less government, the better. Not too much overreach. I'm not opposed to regulation. I think a certain amount of regulation is good and appropriate, but you can't trust these guys, because the regulators think they're saving the world, and then they don't understand that there are people like myself and many of you that are big boys and girls that, if we want to invest in something high risk with the dollars that we've earned, and they don't give us access to that because everybody's afraid. The brokerages here in the US have been all shut down, the small ones that do higher risk, smaller cap trading and IPOs, that market's dead. If you want to go and buy some of the smaller cryptos, there's right now virtually no exchanges in the world that will take Americans. We are alongside of North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and the United States. This exchange is open to you except for you're from one of those 5 countries. Why? Because they went after Binance, which Binance is the biggest exchange in the world, that took Americans off of their platform in February of 2019, before the mania of the largest wealth creation event, one of the biggest cycles within that, hit. And many people didn't even know that you're being held from that. Why can't they make a distinction like they do with accredited investors, qualified purchasers, people that actually are aware of what's what? They put a blanket on all this stuff because they think they're saving the world, and they're actually damaging America's ability to innovate. So who's more important in that equation? Yeah, well, Gensler's going to be gone. I hope if Kamala gets in there, she even changes him. I don't know what her status is on that. I know that Trump will get him out of there. He is a Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren getting out of their offices is more important than Donald Trump being president or Kamala Harris being president, in my opinion, because they stifle the things that could be making us wealthy and keeping the lead in America as the innovative and technological leader in the world. We are actually getting hurt right now. And I've been watching this for years and it really upsets me. And that's why I have the phenomcrypto.com letter, because we have to find ways to participate in these things, and that's decentralized finance. So anyway, then the point with that was, if your financial advisor gets you into IBIT, Bitcoin ETF, it's better than nothing, but you still have it within the system. What if the system crashes? Look at the amount of debt that this world is in, particularly in America. You have somebody that leveraged on their credit cards, somebody comes knocking one day. And if you think that the system in general in the world that is all based on debt is not going to have a day home to roost, I've been surprised how far they can kick it and kick it down the can. Maybe they can continue kicking it. And then one day the Reaper comes, and it's probably going to be at a time when we don't expect. Anyway, the fact that you vote is their way of telling you that you had a choice in the matter. You fucking don't. And your vote doesn't matter. Swing states, but in the swing states, whatever, dude, whatever. You think you have a say in this matter? No. Oh, so the personal part. This is what I actually bank on. Some of you, it is like nonsense, and some of you, this will be a reminder. If you get too caught up in the politics, because I did that, I think it was during Hillary Trump, and then I just stopped. And I didn't even vote then, but I was like all into the debates and crap. It just was like a downer. Proverbs 21:1, in the Lord's hand, the king's heart is a stream of water that he channels toward all who please him. That's just one interpretation. The other ones are basically the Lord God above can make a president of the United States go this way or that way, and they won't even know it. So there's a bigger picture. There are bigger forces, whether you want to believe in that part or you just want to believe in the fact that we've got the central banking initiatives, other big interests that end up influencing. I don't want to call them total puppets, but they, because especially people think that if it's Donald Trump in there, I just would tell you guys, most of you would assume that I probably am a Donald Trump voter. I like the guy, but it's like he's almost 80. He's fallen apart, and he's very respectable in terms of what he's accomplished. But if you look at like some of the stuff that he says and does, for example, if you're a conservative Christian, Trump doesn't have a relationship with God. He just says what he spouts to get his voter base. I can tell. Can you? Then you'd rationalize that, and you're like, well, but he's for this and this. Okay, whatever. There are forces that are bigger than the political election. It will produce volatility, and at the end of the day, the US dollar will continue to be debased because there's no way out. And that takes us to gold and Bitcoin and stores of value and commodities, which I believe, Paul Tudor Jones recently came on CNBC, and he said that commodities are so severely underowned. He's been buying commodities, but he's long Bitcoin, he's long gold, just like I am. And I'm long commodities now, vis-a-vis our companies. And what'll happen, I think, is when gold and silver get too expensive and go up too high, people will naturally say, well, what's the best exposure I can have that's not going through the roof? And it's going to be ounces in the ground, baby. And that's gold investment letter, and where we are invested in the mining companies. And so today, would I buy gold here, regardless of the election? I was pounding the table last year, guys, after that long consolidation, nobody believed me. And then on the 2100 monthly close trigger, I bought more, and I'm good. And I'm good on my physical silver, good on my gold, and whatever. You can still buy it, it'll be fine, but I don't buy into big runs like this in anything. And that goes, I think gold could use a cool off period soon. Might go to 3,000 first, but it's not going to be a straight up line. And with Bitcoin, which at a minimum is gold's first competitor in a millennia, and you don't have any diversification into it, BlackRock saying you should have 85% of your portfolio in it, and you don't own any, I'm just telling you, as I've told you guys many times before, take your lazy ass and go open a crypto account at Coinbase or whatever in your nation, Binance if you're international, and buy yourself some Bitcoin and just don't touch it. You'll thank me later because it's about to explode to new highs and then it's gone. Cheers.